slightly different topic for me today than many of the ones that I've talked about in various presentations that I've given during my career. For those of you that have seen my presentations before, this is more the kind of topic that you would see. I've done a lot of work up and down the West Coast on oil spill risk, ferry passenger risk, those kind of topics. I've moved into homeland security type risk, but again, concentrating sort of in the maritime domain. I've done risky things like climb up the side of an oil tanker on a rope ladder. It was the newest oil tanker in the world, and the rope ladder looked like it was out of Pirates of the Caribbean. So this is more my sort of domain that I'm perhaps known for. More recently, Yael mentioned I've done a lot of supply chain work, helping supply chain companies deal with the COVID pandemic and various other types of projects. Yael and I had the fun of working with an NFL team. We're not allowed to say which team, but we had a great experience with that. So I'm someone that loves to get involved with real decisions and kind of test out the boundaries of our field. Look at the latest research and see how it transfers into the real world. So this kind of combination between decision analysis society and SDP is really my sweet spot. But today's project, I'm going to talk about really somebody else's work. I was the coach. I wasn't the on the ground decision analyst. So this is Ed Cook. Ed Cook, the work that we're going to talk about was at Capital One. Ed is a vice president, or was a vice president at Capital One at the time of this work. And at the same time, he was doing his PhD with me at VCU. And Ed has a long storied tradition of working in kind of complex and interesting decision environments. I like to tell my students the story of the first project that I did was the Prince William Sound risk assessment, and it was about 6 years after the Exxon Valdez disaster. And the first rule we had to make for how we were going to carry out this project was no guns, because all of the Alaska fishermen and women and environmentalists carried big guns because they could run into moose or polar bears. And so the oil company presidents show up with bodyguards who are ex-special forces, and we were literally standing in the middle. So I like to say I've dealt with some fairly high tense situations in decision analysis. But Ed beats me. He helped to set up the banking system in Iraq. So this is a picture of the entrance to the green zone in Iraq. So he's a former Air Force pilot. And then, because of his experience at Capital One, went over to Iraq to work with General Petraeus to set up the banking system there. So yeah, he's dealt with much more tense situations than I ever have. He also has worked on founding the Capital One cafes. I don't know if you've gone there. They finally have tea. I was asking him that I needed tea, not just coffee there, for years. They finally put tea into the Capital One cafes. This project, though, is more about something that Ed got involved in, looking at improving technology actually in the bank, at the teller. And so it's a technology implementation project looking at improving, taking all the technology that we all now use in banking with our phone to be able to scan checks, bringing that, making sure that that same technology was going to be working actually in the branch for the people that still go into a branch. And I thought I'd add in this quote. I won't read it to you, but this is Yael's friend, Amy Edmondson. And this really captures for me the sense in which technology implementations work. So as someone, as Yael mentioned, my undergraduate was in maths. There's an S on the end of it, by the way, people, and computation. They didn't call it, Oxford's too pretentious to call it computer science at the time. So I come from that very sort of black and white kind of background of a mathematician. But when you actually think about technology, it's much more gray. It's actually how the technology interacts with the people and the processes and the rules in the organization. And so technology implementations are hard things to carry out. There are many examples of failure. This specific implementation was actually looking at digitizing checks in the branch. So this is the little relatively